Hello and welcome back to another episode here on my channel. I'm Pearl and I share true stories sent to me from people all around the world. Stories of betrayal, resilience, and sometimes the kind of justice that comes when you simply stop holding things together. Before we get into it, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. What city, what country? I love seeing how far these stories travel. Today's story comes from Caitlin, a 52-year-old from Portland, Oregon. Now, I need you to stay tuned, hit that like button and subscribe, because what you're about to hear will absolutely keep you glued to your screen. Trust me on this one.
My name is Caitlin. I'm 52 years old and I live in Portland, Oregon. And I need to tell you about the morning my daughter uninvited me from her wedding. I was standing in my kitchen, morning light slanting through the window onto the marble countertop. Everything felt ordinary, safe. I was folding cloth napkins for a dinner party I'd planned for the following week, cream linen with hand-stitched edges, the kind of detail I'd always thought mattered. My fingers moved automatically, crease against crease, each fold precise. That's when Melissa walked in. She didn't knock. She had a key, of course. She'd always had a key. But something about the way she entered that morning felt different, deliberate, rehearsed, like she'd practiced this moment in front of a mirror. "Mom," she said. Not "hey, Mom" or "morning," just "Mom," flat and administrative. I looked up, smiled. "Hey, sweetheart. I was just thinking about the seating chart for the rehearsal dinner. I know you wanted Aunt Claire near the... That's actually what I need to talk to you about." There was a pause. Not the comfortable kind we'd shared 1,000 times over coffee and wedding magazines. This pause had weight. She sat down across from me, her hands folded on the table like she was in a business meeting. That should have been my first clue. "I've been thinking," she began, her voice so measured it sounded like she was reading from a script. "And I think it would be better, for everyone, if you didn't come to the wedding." I stopped folding. The napkin hung limp between my hands, one corner brushing my fingertips like it was trying to hold on. "I'm sorry, what?" "It's not personal," she said quickly, which is what people say when it's absolutely personal. "It's just, you're a lot, Mom. You have a way of taking up space, and I need this day to be calm, peaceful. I need it to be about me and David, not about managing you." Managing me? As if I were a logistical problem, a vendor who'd shown up to the wrong venue. I stared at her. At my daughter, the girl I'd rocked to sleep, whose scraped knees I'd bandaged, whose college essays I'd proofread at 2 a.m, the woman whose wedding I'd been planning alongside her for 8 months, coordinating with florists, tasting cakes, arguing with the venue manager when they tried to overcharge her for linens. "You're uninviting me," I said slowly, testing the words to see if they'd make sense out loud. They didn't. "I'm asking you to understand," Melissa corrected, like there was a difference. "You have this energy, Mom. It's intense. People notice you, and I just can't have that, not on my day." People notice you. I'd heard that before, from my mother, who told me I laughed too loud at family dinners, from my ex-husband, who'd said I made everything about me when I cried during our divorce, from colleagues who'd described me as a strong personality, which was code for something else entirely. But I'd never thought I'd hear it from my daughter. Not like this, not delivered with the clinical efficiency of someone canceling a subscription service. I wanted to ask her when I'd become too much. Was it when I stayed up all night sewing the flower girl dresses because the seamstress flaked? Was it when I paid the $3,200 deposit on the photographer she loved but couldn't afford? Was it when I held her hair back after she got food poisoning from bad sushi and sobbed about whether David really loved her? But I didn't ask any of that, because something in her face told me she'd already decided. This wasn't a conversation, it was a notification. So I did the only thing I could do. I nodded. Once. Just once. "Okay," I said. Melissa blinked, surprised. I think she'd expected tears, drama, the very thing she'd just accused me of being. But I gave her nothing. I folded the napkin one last time, set it on the stack with the others, and stood. "I hope it's everything you want it to be," I said quietly. And then I walked out of my own kitchen. I didn't cry, not then, but as I heard the door close behind her, I realized something. She hadn't just uninvited me from her wedding. She'd uninvited me from mattering. But here's what Melissa didn't know. I spent the next 3 days in motion. Not running, not fleeing, just moving through spaces where no one knew my name. I drove to the airport at dawn and sat in the terminal for hours, watching travelers blur past, people with destinations, with people waiting for them, with reasons to arrive somewhere and be welcomed. I ordered coffee I didn't drink. I read the same page of a book 7 times without absorbing a single word. Then I checked into a hotel downtown, not because I needed to. My house was 20 minutes away. But I needed to be somewhere that didn't expect anything from me, somewhere I could sit in a chair that no one had chosen for me, in a room with walls I hadn't painted, watching a television I hadn't mounted. Neutral spaces, anonymous spaces, places where I could dissolve. That's when the clarity came. Not in a flash, not in some dramatic moment of revelation. It came quietly, the way certain truths do when you finally stop running from them. I wasn't too much. I was simply too visible doing work they'd mistaken for wallpaper. Let me explain. For 27 years, I'd been what you might call ambient noise, the hum of a machine that keeps everything running, so constant you forget it's even there. I was the person who remembered everyone's birthdays, who knew which cousin was allergic to shellfish, who kept the family calendar synchronized across 4 time zones. I was the one who sent the holiday cards, who organized the reunion, who mediated the arguments no one else wanted to touch. I wasn't invited to participate, I was embedded as infrastructure. And infrastructure, when it works, is invisible. But when you're a person, a loud laugh, a bright dress, a presence in a room, you create a problem because suddenly the infrastructure has a face, it has opinions, it takes up space. And Melissa couldn't have that. She didn't need a mother at her wedding. She needed a system, and systems don't wear off-white to a ceremony. They don't cry during vows. They don't get noticed. I sat on the edge of that hotel bed, staring at my phone, and I scrolled through our text thread. 8 months of wedding planning. Mom, can you call the florist about the centerpieces? Mom, the caterer needs a deposit by Friday. Mom, David's mother is freaking out about the seating chart. Can you handle it? Mom, I need you to pick up my dress from alterations. 600 messages. Not one of them asked how I was. Not one of them said thank you. I wasn't her mother in those texts. I was her project manager, her personal assistant, her fix-it service. And the moment I became visible, the moment I became a person who might draw attention, who might be seen, I became a liability. I closed the thread. I didn't delete it, not yet, but I closed it. Then I opened a new browser tab and searched luxury resorts, immediate availability, ocean view. I wasn't looking for an escape. I wasn't running away to punish her or to make some grand statement. I was removing a load-bearing column, and I wanted to see what happened when the weight I'd been holding finally hit the ground. The resort I found was in La Jolla, California. 4-hour drive, ocean-facing suite, infinity pool, spa services, Michelin star restaurant. The kind of place I'd bookmarked a dozen times over the years and never booked because there was always something more important. Someone else's crisis, someone else's need, someone else's wedding. I clicked reserve now. 3 nights, check in tomorrow. No hesitation, no second guessing. I packed a single suitcase, linen pants, cotton blouses, a swimsuit I'd bought 2 years ago and never worn, sunscreen, a book I'd been meaning to read since last summer. I didn't tell anyone. Not my sister, who would have tried to mediate. Not my best friend, who would have called Melissa on my behalf. Not Melissa, especially not Melissa. Because here's the thing about being infrastructure. The moment you announce you're leaving, people scramble to replace you. They find workarounds. They redistribute the labor. But when you just stop, if you just quietly remove yourself from the system without fanfare, without explanation, that's when they realize how much was resting on you. I checked out of the hotel the next morning, got in my car, and drove south. The highway stretched ahead of me, empty and clean. I didn't turn on music. I didn't call anyone. I just drove, and somewhere around mile 70, I realized I hadn't thought about the wedding in over an hour. Not the seating chart, not the florist, not Melissa's face when she told me I was too much. For the first time in 8 months, I felt light. Not happy, not yet, but light. Like I'd been carrying something so long, I'd forgotten it wasn't part of my body, and now that I'd set it down, I could finally feel my own weight again. I arrived at the resort just after sunset. The ocean was the color of bruised plums, the sky streaked with orange and gold. I checked in, the receptionist smiled and handed me a key card. "Welcome to Seascape, Miss Caitlin. We hope you enjoy your stay." I took the key, and I didn't correct her. I wasn't anyone's mom here. I was just Caitlin, and that, I realized, was enough. But back in Portland, something was already starting to unravel. The deletions began in the car. Not out of spite, not out of anger, out of necessity. Because when you've been the central nervous system of someone else's life for long enough, extraction requires precision. I pulled into a rest stop about 90 minutes into the drive, parked under a tree, and opened my phone. First, the Napa reservations. Melissa had wanted a wine country brunch the morning after the wedding. Intimate, she'd said, just close family. I'd booked a private terrace at a vineyard estate for 22 people. Deposit paid, menu selected, sommelier arranged. I opened the confirmation email, clicked cancel reservation. The system asked, "Are you sure?" I was. Cancellation confirmed, deposit forfeited. I moved on. Next, the shared family calendar. Months of color-coded entries, dress fittings, cake tastings, vendor meetings, rehearsal dinner timeline, day of schedule down to 15-minute increments. I scrolled through it once just to see how much of it was my handwriting, my notes, my reminders, almost all of it. I selected everything. Deleted. The calendar went blank, white and empty, like fresh snow. Then the group chat. 47 unread messages. I didn't open them. I just muted the thread, archived it, and turned off notifications. Silence. Immediate and total. My phone felt lighter in my hand. I put the car back in drive and continued south. What I didn't know, what I wouldn't know until much later, was that my silence had a radius. It spread outward like a stone dropped into still water, and the people closest to me were the first to feel the ripples. My sister, Laura, texted me that afternoon. "Hey, did you confirm the florist for the ceremony arch? Melissa's freaking out." I saw the notification. I didn't answer. 2 hours later, "Kate, you there?" Still nothing. By evening, "Okay, this is weird. Call me when you can." Laura had always relied on me for translations. She and Melissa didn't communicate well, too much old resentment, too many unspoken grudges, so I'd become the bridge between them, the interpreter, the one who could say, what Melissa really means is, or Laura's just worried, she didn't mean it that way. Without me, they'd have to talk to each other directly, and neither of them knew how to do that. Then there was the wedding planner, Simone. Efficient, expensive, award-winning, but here's what no one else noticed. Simone didn't make decisions. She facilitated them. And when things got complicated, when a vendor pushed back, when timelines overlapped, when someone needed to make the hard call, she deferred. To me. Always to me. It had been so subtle I almost hadn't noticed it myself. A quick text before confirming something with Melissa. What do you think, before finalizing an order? She'd learned over 8 months that I was the one who actually knew what was happening. I was the load-bearing wall she'd been leaning on without realizing it. Now that wall was gone. And then there was David's mother, Patricia. Sweet, anxious, well-meaning Patricia, who had very strong opinions about napkin colors and very little ability to handle conflict. The kind of woman who'd call in tears because the groom's cake wasn't masculine enough and didn't know how to tell Melissa without ruining everything. I'd absorbed dozens of her meltdowns over the past 6 months, soothed her, reassured her, ran interference so Melissa never had to deal with her directly. Patricia texted me that evening. Caitlin, I'm so sorry to bother you, but I just got an email from the venue about parking, and I don't understand what they're asking. Can you look at it? I saw it. I didn't respond. An hour later, Caitlin? 3 hours later, is everything okay? The irony was almost beautiful. They all thought I was being compliant, quiet, giving Melissa space just like she'd asked. They didn't realize I'd removed myself entirely, not from the wedding, from the infrastructure. I arrived at the resort just after 8 o'clock. The lobby smelled of jasmine and sea salt. Soft music played from invisible speakers. Everything was cream and pale blue and warm wood, designed to make you forget the world outside. I checked in, took the elevator to the 4th floor, and opened my suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows, ocean stretching out into darkness, the sound of waves, rhythmic and ancient, like breathing. I set my suitcase down. I didn't unpack. I just walked to the window and stood there, watching the moonlight on the water. Silence. Real silence. Not the absence of sound, but the absence of demand. No one was asking me for anything. No one needed me to fix anything. No one was waiting for me to respond. I pulled out my phone, half expecting a flood of missed calls. There were 3 texts. Laura, Patricia, Simone. All asking where I was. None of them asking if I was okay. I turned the phone face down on the nightstand. Then I opened the balcony door and stepped outside. The air was cool and clean, salt and eucalyptus. The ocean moved in the dark, patient and indifferent. I breathed in, and for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt the exact shape of my own life. Not defined by who needed me, not measured by what I could carry, just mine. I didn't smile, but I didn't cry either. I just stood there and let the weight I'd been holding fall into the sea. Back in Portland, the first crack was beginning to show. I woke up the next morning to sunlight on white linens and the sound of waves. No alarm, no agenda. Just the slow animal awareness of my own breathing. I ordered room service, coffee, fruit, pastries I didn't need, and ate on the balcony in my robe, watching sailboats drift across the horizon like lazy thoughts. It was perfect. It was mine. And then, out of habit more than intention, I opened my laptop. I told myself I was just checking email, just clearing out the noise, just making sure nothing urgent had... I stopped. There, buried in my inbox between a newsletter I'd never subscribed to and a reminder about my dentist appointment, was an email from the wedding venue. Subject line, outstanding balance, payment required by June 10th. I stared at it. June 10th. That was in 4 days. The wedding was in 9. I opened the email. Dear Miss Whitmore, this is a courtesy reminder that the final venue payment of $17,300 remains outstanding. Per our contract, all balances must be cleared 5 days prior to the event date to confirm services. Please remit payment by June 10th to avoid cancellation. Best regards, Cornerstone Events. $17,300? My stomach dropped. Not out of panic, not yet. Out of recognition, because I knew exactly what this was. 8 months ago, when Melissa and David were drowning in vendor quotes and spiraling about budget, I'd done what I always did. I opened a dedicated savings account, transferred money quietly over time, built a fund so they wouldn't have to stress about the final payments when everything came due at once. I'd planned to tell them about it closer to the wedding, a surprise, a gift. Don't worry, sweetheart, I've got this covered. But then I'd been uninvited, and I'd forgotten about the account entirely. No, that's not true. I hadn't forgotten. I just stopped thinking of it as my responsibility. I logged into my banking app, navigating to the account I'd labeled Melissa Wedding Fund. $17,300. Untouched. Waiting. I stared at the number. It sat there on the screen like stored gravity, potential energy that hadn't been released yet, weight that hadn't fallen. All I had to do was click transfer, route it to the venue, done. Problem solved. My finger hovered over the button, and then I thought about Melissa's face in my kitchen. You're a lot, Mom. I thought about the 8 months of logistics I'd managed, the vendors I'd called, the crises I'd solved, the deposit I'd paid out of pocket when their photographer almost bailed. I thought about how easy it had been for her to erase me, how cleanly she'd reframed my existence as a problem to be managed. And I thought about something else, something quieter, but sharper. Fixing things had trained them to forget how anything worked. They didn't know about the account. They didn't know I'd been the one scaffolding their entire wedding from behind the scenes. They'd mistaken my competence for ease, my care for automation. They thought the wedding was running smoothly because they were organized. They had no idea it was running smoothly because I'd been running it. I closed the banking app. I didn't transfer the money. I didn't delete the account either. I just left it, untouched, waiting. One click and the venue would be paid. One click and the problem would be solved. But I didn't click. Not out of malice, not out of revenge, just out of absence. I wasn't part of the wedding anymore, so why was I still holding it up? I closed the laptop, finished my coffee, and went down to the pool. I didn't know it yet, but back in Portland, the first phone call was already happening. The venue manager, Patricia Chen, dialed Melissa's number at 10:47 a.m. Melissa was at a final dress fitting, laughing with her bridesmaids, when her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Cornerstone Events. She frowned, stepped into the hallway, and answered. Hi, this is Melissa. Hi, Melissa. This is Patricia from Cornerstone. I'm calling about your outstanding balance. We sent a reminder email, but I wanted to follow up personally since we're getting close to the deadline. Melissa's heart kicked. Outstanding balance? I thought everything was paid. A pause. No, the final venue fee of $17,300 is still pending. It's due by the 10th or we'll have to cancel per the contract terms. Melissa's heart kicked. That can't be right. My mom handled all the payments. She stopped. Because her mom wasn't handling anything anymore. Her mom was uninvited. Let me look into this and call you back, Melissa said, her voice suddenly tight. She hung up, stared at her phone. then opened her banking app, checked her account, checked David's account. Nothing. No fund, no reserve, no magical safety net. She tried to remember if her mom had ever mentioned setting money aside. She couldn't, because she'd never asked. She called her mom. It rang and went to voicemail. "Mom, it's me. The venue just called about a payment. Can you call me back? It's kind of urgent." She hung up. Tried again 10 minutes later. Voicemail again. Then she called Laura. "Have you talked to Mom?" "Not since yesterday. Why?" "She's not answering, and there's this venue payment thing, and I don't know if she..." "I'm sure she's fine. She's probably just giving you space, like you asked." Melissa hung up. She stood in the hallway of the bridal boutique, her dress half pinned, her bridesmaids laughing in the other room. And for the first time, she felt it, the faintest tremor, like the ground beneath her had shifted, just slightly, just enough. And in La Jolla, I was floating in an infinity pool, watching clouds drift across an endless sky. Melissa did what she always did when reality didn't cooperate. She controlled the narrative. It started small, a text to her bridesmaids group chat. "Hey guys, just a heads up, my mom won't be at the wedding. She's not feeling well and didn't want to add stress to the day. Let's just keep things positive and not make a big deal about it, okay?" Then to David's family group. "Quick update, Caitlin won't be joining us for the wedding. She's been under the weather and thought it was best to rest. She sends her love." Then to Laura, more carefully worded. "Mom's taking some time for herself. I think the wedding planning got to be too much for her. She'll be fine. Let's just let her rest." She didn't say uninvited. She said not feeling well. She didn't say I told her not to come. She said didn't want to add stress. Language as camouflage, spin as kindness. And for 48 hours, it worked. People sent sympathetic texts. "Oh no, I hope she feels better." And "She must be so disappointed." And "What a shame, but good for her for prioritizing her health." Melissa felt the narrative settle around her like a protective shell. Her mother was absent, yes, but it was her mother's choice, her mother's fragility, her mother's inability to handle the pressure, not Melissa's cruelty. Never that. She almost believed it herself. I posted the photo on a Tuesday afternoon. I hadn't planned to. I'd been sitting at the resort bar, an open-air pavilion overlooking the cliffs, sipping something citrus and cold, watching the light turn the ocean into hammered gold, the kind of moment that feels too beautiful to keep to yourself. So I took a picture, not of myself, just the drink, the view, the horizon bleeding orange and pink into the deepening blue. I posted it to Instagram. No caption, no explanation, just the image. And I set my phone down and went back to watching the light. My cousin Rachel saw it first. She was scrolling through her feed during a meeting, half listening to someone talk about quarterly projections when my photo appeared. She stopped, looked at the timestamp, posted 47 minutes ago, then looked at the location tag I'd accidentally left on, Seascape Resort, La Jolla. She zoomed in on the drink, the sunlight, the infinity pool visible in the corner of the frame. She opened her messages and texted her sister, Vanessa. Is Aunt Caitlin supposed to be sick?" Vanessa replied immediately. "That's what Melissa said. Why?" Rachel sent her the photo. "Because she just posted this from a resort in California." Vanessa stared at her phone. "Oh my God. Should we say something? I don't know. Maybe she needed space? Melissa said she was sick." "Yeah, well, Melissa says a lot of things." Vanessa didn't respond right away. She just forwarded the photo to my mother, my sister, Laura. Laura called me 16 times that evening. I didn't answer, not because I was avoiding her, because I was at a sound bath meditation session at the resort spa, lying on a mat with my eyes closed, feeling my nervous system finally unclench. When I came out, my phone was lit up like an emergency beacon. 16 missed calls, 23 texts. I scrolled through them slowly, wrapped in a plush white robe, my skin still warm from the eucalyptus steam room. "Caitlin, call me. Why are you at a resort? Melissa is losing it. People are asking questions. You need to explain what's going on." I read them all, and then I opened the group chat I'd muted days ago, the family thread I'd archived. The messages were chaos. Aunt Claire, "Caitlin, are you okay? Melissa said you were sick." Cousin Vanessa, "You look pretty healthy in that sunset photo." Melissa, "Caitlin, can you please answer your phone? People are confused." Patricia, David's mother, "Caitlin, I saw your post. I'm so glad you're feeling better. Should I let Melissa know you'll be at the wedding after all?" And then in a separate thread between Melissa and Laura that someone had accidentally screenshotted and sent to the wrong group. "Melissa, I can't believe she's doing this." Laura, "Doing what? Taking a vacation?" Melissa, "She's trying to make me look bad." Laura, "Or maybe she just needed a break?" Melissa, "Right before my wedding? Convenient." I set the phone down, picked up my drink, and smiled for the first time in days. The story Melissa had built, the careful architecture of Mom's not feeling well and she didn't want the stress, had fractured. Not because I'd contradicted her, but because I'd simply existed somewhere else, visibly, joyfully, in a place that required a 4-hour drive and a credit card and the kind of intentionality that sick people usually don't have. The lie didn't collapse all at once, but it started to leak. People started asking questions, quietly at first, in private messages and whispered phone calls. Did Melissa and her mom have a fight? Why would Caitlin miss the wedding? Do you think something happened? And Melissa, who spent her whole life being very good at controlling how people saw her, suddenly couldn't control this because I wasn't fighting her. I wasn't defending myself. I wasn't even engaging. I was just elsewhere, and my absence had become louder than anything I could have said. Simone, the wedding planner, called me Wednesday morning. I was halfway through a yoga class on the beach when my phone buzzed in my bag. I saw her name on the screen after class, listened to the voicemail. "Hi, Caitlin, it's Simone. I'm just checking in. Melissa mentioned you weren't feeling well, but I saw your post and, well, I wanted to make sure everything was okay. There are a few vendor questions that have come up, and I realized I've been asking you about a lot of things, and I'm not sure who to ask now. Can you call me back when you get a chance?" Her voice was uncertain. For the first time since I'd met her, she sounded like she didn't have a plan. I deleted the voicemail. I didn't call her back. Because here's the thing about being infrastructure. When you remove yourself, people don't just notice you're gone, they notice how much was resting on you, and they start to panic. That night, I posted another photo, me this time, standing on the beach at sunset, barefoot, wearing a white linen dress, my hair loose and salt-tangled, the ocean reaching toward me like an old friend. Still no caption, just the image, and this time I left the location on. I wanted them to see, not where I was, but who I was without them. Back in Portland, the clock was ticking, and the wedding was 6 days away. I floated in the ocean on Thursday morning, weightless and untethered, letting the current carry me parallel to the shore. The water was cold enough to make me gasp, warm enough to stay in. I closed my eyes and let the salt hold me. I didn't think about the wedding. I didn't think about Melissa. I didn't think about anything at all. I just floated. Back in Portland, the system was collapsing. It started with David. He woke up at 6 a.m. with his chest tight and his thoughts spiraling, the kind of anxiety that turns small concerns into catastrophic certainties. He'd had these episodes before, usually during finals in college or before big work presentations, and there was only one person who knew how to talk him down, Caitlin. She'd done it a dozen times over the past year, late-night phone calls when the wedding planning felt overwhelming, calm, steady reassurance. You're going to be fine. Melissa loves you. This is just nerves. Breathe. He called her. Voicemail. He tried again. Voicemail. He texted Melissa. Is your mom still not answering? Melissa, already awake and staring at her own phone, replied, She's on vacation. Why? I just need to talk to her. About what? Nothing. Never mind. But it wasn't nothing. Without Caitlin, David's anxiety had nowhere to go except inward. He sat on the edge of the bed, hands shaking, wondering if he was making a mistake, if marriage was too big, if he was ready, if Melissa would resent him someday the way she seemed to resent her mother. He didn't tell anyone. He just carried it. At 9 a.m., the florist called Melissa. Hi, this is Gina from Bloom and Vine. I hate to do this so close to the date, but we still haven't received the final payment for the ceremony arrangements. Our policy requires full payment 72 hours before delivery, and we're past that now. Melissa's stomach clenched. I thought my mom took care of that. We've been emailing the address on file, Caitlin Whitmore, but haven't heard back. The balance is $4,200. $4,200. Melissa didn't have $4,200 sitting in her checking account. Can you give me until tomorrow? I'm sorry, but if we don't receive payment by end of business today, we'll have to release your order. We have other weddings this weekend. Melissa hung up and immediately called Laura. Do you have Mom's credit card info? What? No, why would I? The florist needs payment. I thought Mom handled it. Melissa, Mom isn't handling anything. You uninvited her. I know that, Laura, but she was supposed to... Supposed to what? Keep managing your wedding after you told her not to come? Melissa hung up. She called the florist back and put the payment on her credit card, her hand shaking as she typed in the numbers. One problem solved. Barely. At 11 a.m., the photographer emailed, Hi, Melissa. I wanted to confirm the timeline for Saturday. I haven't received the updated shot list we discussed, and I need it by tonight to plan properly. Caitlin usually sends these over. Should I follow up with her directly? Melissa stared at the email. She didn't have a shot list. She didn't even know there was supposed to be a shot list. She opened her wedding planning folder, the one she thought was complete, and searched for anything related to photography. Nothing, because Caitlin had been managing it in a separate folder, a separate calendar, a separate system that Melissa had never bothered to look at because it was always just handled. She tried to piece together a list from memory, failed, panicked, sent the photographer a half-finished document, and hoped it would be enough. At 1 p.m., Patricia called sobbing. Melissa, I don't know what to do. The venue just sent me an email about linens, and I don't understand what they're asking, and Caitlin isn't answering, and I'm so stressed I can barely breathe. Patricia, I need you to calm down. I can't calm down. Your wedding is 2 days, and nothing makes sense, and I don't know how your mother did all of this. Melissa closed her eyes. Just forward me the email. I'll handle it. But she didn't know how to handle it, because she'd never had to. At 5 p.m., Melissa's grandmother called, or rather, Laura called to say that their grandmother had collapsed. Not seriously, not hospital serious, but stress serious, anxiety serious, the kind of collapse that happens when an 80-year-old woman spends 3 days fielding questions about why Caitlin isn't at the wedding, whether there's been a family fight, if everything is okay. She's fine, Laura said, but she's asking for Mom. Well, Mom isn't here. I know, Melissa. Believe me, we all know. At 5 p.m., Simone, the wedding planner, called. Her voice was tight, professional, but fraying. Melissa, we need to talk. I've been trying to coordinate with your vendors, but I'm realizing that a lot of the confirmations I thought were handled weren't, or they were handled by your mom, and I don't have access to her files. What does that mean? It means I need you to confirm who's setting up the guest book table, who's bringing the card box, who's coordinating transportation for your grandmother, who's handling the emergency kit, I don't know, Melissa's voice cracked. I thought you were handling it. A long pause. Melissa, Simone said quietly, I was coordinating. Your mom was handling. Melissa hung up. She sat on the floor of her apartment, surrounded by half-packed suitcases and wedding favors she hadn't distributed and a seating chart she hadn't finalized, and she finally understood. The wedding hadn't been running smoothly because she was organized. It had been running smoothly because her mother had been holding it together. And now her mother was gone, and the whole thing was coming apart. I floated in the ocean until my fingers pruned. Then I floated some more. I didn't check my phone. I didn't think about Portland. I just let the water hold me. Because for the first time in 27 years, I wasn't holding anything, and it felt like flight. At 8 p.m., Melissa finally tried calling me again, not to apologize, not to explain, to ask for help. Mom, please, I know you're upset, but I need you. The venue payment, the florist, the photographer, everything is falling apart. I can't do this without you. Please call me back. Her voice was desperate, raw, the kind of vulnerable I hadn't heard from her since she was a child. I listened to the voicemail later that night, after a massage and a 4-course dinner and a glass of wine on my balcony. I listened to it twice, and then I deleted it. Not of cruelty, but out of clarity, because she didn't need me. She needed a system, and I was done being infrastructure. The wedding was 36 hours away, and Melissa had just realized there was no emergency contact left. Friday, the day before the wedding. I woke to silence and ocean light, stretched like a cat across Egyptian cotton sheets, and decided to stay in bed until noon. No reason to get up. No one waiting for me. No crisis to manage, just me and the sound of waves and the slow luxury of time that belonged entirely to myself. I ordered breakfast to my room, ate it slowly, read 40 pages of a novel without interruption. It was perfect. And then, around 2 p.m., I made the mistake of glancing at my phone. 37 missed calls, 62 text messages, 14 voicemails. The screen glowed with notifications like a distress signal. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I set it face down on the nightstand and went to take a shower. But curiosity is a difficult thing to ignore. After my shower, wrapped in a robe, hair dripping onto my shoulders, I picked up the phone again. I didn't call anyone back. I just looked. The text had started early that morning. Laura, 6:47 a.m. Caitlin, please call me. Melissa's losing it. Melissa, 0702 a.m. Mom, I need you to call me back today. Simone, 8:34 a.m. Caitlin, I'm so sorry to bother you, but we have several urgent vendor issues and I don't have the information I need. Can you please call me when you get this? Then the tone shifted. Melissa, 10:15 a.m. Where are you? Why aren't you answering? Patricia, 11:03 a.m. Caitlin, sweetheart, I know you're on vacation, but Melissa really needs to talk to you. Can you please just call her back? Laura, 11:47 a.m. This is getting out of hand. People are freaking out. You need to respond. And then the escalation. Melissa, 12:22 p.m. Mom, I don't know what I did to make you this angry, but you need to help me. The wedding is tomorrow. Melissa, 1:03 p.m. You have to fix this. Melissa, 1:38 p.m. Call me. I opened the voicemails. The first few were apologetic, tentative. Melissa's voice shaky. Mom, I'm sorry. I know I hurt you. I need you. Please call me back. Then they got more frantic. Mom, the caterer is saying you were supposed to confirm the final head count, and I don't have that information. Where is it? Please, I need you to send it to me. Then desperate. Mom, I don't understand why you're doing this. You're punishing me right before my wedding. How is that fair? And finally, angry. You know what? Fine, don't help. I'll figure it out myself, but don't expect me to forgive you for this. I listened to all of them, every single one. And I noticed something. Not one person asked how I was. Not one person said, are you okay? Are you safe? Are you taking care of yourself? Every message was a demand dressed up as concern. I need you. Where are you? You have to fix this. Even the apologies were transactional. I'm sorry, but I know I hurt you, but I understand you're upset, but the but was always followed by a request, a task, a crisis only I could solve. I wasn't a person to them. I was a function. And the only reason they were panicking now wasn't because they missed me. It was because the system had failed. I scrolled through the group chat I'd muted. It was chaos. Aunt Claire. Has anyone actually talked to Caitlin? Cousin Rachel. She's at a resort in California. She posted photos. Aunt Claire. Well, someone needs to tell her to come home. Laura. She's not coming home, Claire. Melissa uninvited her. Aunt Claire. What? Cousin Vanessa. Wait, Melissa uninvited her own mother? Melissa. That's not what happened. She's twisting it. Laura. I'm not twisting anything. You told her not to come because she was too much. Melissa. I was trying to set boundaries. Laura. You were trying to erase her. Patricia. Ladies, please, this isn't helping. Simone, I hate to interrupt, but does anyone have access to Caitlin's vendor files? We're missing several key confirmations. Melissa, she took everything with her. Laura, she didn't take anything. She just stopped doing your job for you. I read it all, and then I opened a new message thread, just to Melissa. I typed slowly, carefully, choosing each word with precision. I'm fine. Thank you for asking. Oh, wait, you didn't. I hesitated. My finger hovered over send. Then I deleted it, because that wasn't the point. The point wasn't to hurt her. The point was that I didn't owe her anything anymore. Not an explanation, not a rescue, not even a reply. I went downstairs to the bar, the same open-air pavilion where I'd taken the sunset photo days earlier. The ocean stretched out in front of me, darkening as the sun dropped toward the horizon. I ordered a cocktail, something with rum and lime and a sprig of mint. The bartender smiled. Celebrating something? I thought about it. Yes, I said. Actually, I am. He didn't ask what. I didn't explain. I just sipped my drink and watched the sky turn violet and gold. My phone was in my room, still face down on the nightstand, still lighting up in the dark, still demanding, still expecting me to be the person who fixed everything. But I wasn't that person anymore. Maybe I never should have been. Around 8 p.m., I finally checked my phone one last time before bed. There were 11 new messages. I didn't read them. I just scrolled to the settings and did something I'd been too afraid to do for years. I turned on Do Not Disturb. All notifications silenced, all calls blocked, all demands deferred. The screen went dark, and the silence that followed felt like a gift. I set the phone face down again. Then I ordered another drink because tomorrow was Melissa's wedding, and for the first time in 8 months, it had absolutely nothing to do with me. In Portland, the night before the wedding, Melissa sat on her bedroom floor, surrounded by half-finished tasks and unanswered questions, and finally understood what she'd lost.
The call came at 11:47 p.m. I was already in bed, half asleep, the sound of the ocean a soft metronome through the open balcony door. My phone was still on Do Not Disturb, but Melissa had been added to my emergency bypass list years ago, back when she was in college and I'd worried about late-night crises. I'd never removed her, so the phone rang. And rang. And despite everything, some part of me, the part that had been a mother for 27 years, reached for it in the dark. I answered without turning on the light. "Melissa." There was a long silence on the other end. Then a sound I hadn't heard in years. She was crying. Not the angry, frustrated crying of someone who wasn't getting their way, not the performative tears she'd weaponized as a teenager to get out of trouble. This was something else. Raw, broken, real. "Mom," she whispered, "I'm so sorry." I didn't respond. I just waited, because I'd learned over the years that silence makes space for truth, and Melissa, for once, had nowhere left to hide. "I ruined everything," she said, her voice thick and shaking. "The wedding is tomorrow, and nothing is ready, and David is barely speaking to me, and Grandma won't stop crying, and everyone is asking where you are, and I can't do this without you." I closed my eyes. Part of me wanted to say, "Then you shouldn't have told me not to come," but I didn't. I just listened. "I know you think I'm selfish," she continued, the words tumbling out in a rush. "And maybe I am, but I didn't uninvite you because I don't love you. I did it because—" She trailed off. "Because?" I prompted, my voice quiet. A long, shuddering breath. "Because I was afraid." "Of what?" Another pause, longer this time, and then, finally, the truth. "Of you." I sat up in bed, the sheets pooling around my waist. "What?" "Not you exactly, just the way you are, the way people see you." "Melissa, I don't understand." "Yes, you do," her voice cracked. "You've always been the one everyone loves, the one everyone gravitates to, the one who lights up a room without even trying, and I'm just the daughter, the one standing next to you, the one people notice second." I felt something shift in my chest. Not anger, understanding. "Melissa, no, let me finish." She was crying harder now. "My whole life it's been like that. At family parties, people would hug you first. At my graduation, everyone wanted to talk to you. When I got engaged, half the comments on my announcement were about how lucky I was to have such an amazing mom." She laughed bitterly. "And I know that's terrible. I know I should be grateful, but I wanted one day, one single day where I wasn't in your shadow, where people weren't comparing me to you, where I could just be the bride and not Caitlin's daughter." I pressed my mouth to my mouth, because suddenly it all made sense. The clinical rejection, the phrase, "you're a lot," the way she'd framed my presence as a threat to her peace. It wasn't about me being too much. It was about her feeling like not enough. "So you erased me," I said softly. "I didn't mean to." Her voice was small. "I just thought
If you weren't there, maybe I could finally be seen. Maybe I could finally be the center of attention for once. And now, a sob. Now I realize that everyone was only looking at me because you made them. You coordinated everything. You smoothed over every conflict. You made me look good without me even knowing it. And the second you left, it all fell apart, including me. The line went quiet except for her breathing, ragged, exhausted. I don't know how to fix this, Mom. I don't know how to be you. And there it was, the thing she'd been carrying her whole life, the weight I'd never known I'd placed on her. I took a breath. Melissa, I said gently, you were never supposed to be me. But everyone wants... I don't care what everyone wants. You're not me, and that's not a failure. That's just who you are. Silence. I know I hurt you, and she whispered, and I know I don't deserve your help, but I'm asking anyway. Please, Mom, I need you. I looked out at the dark ocean, the moonlight turning the water silver. I thought about the past 8 months, the spreadsheets, the vendor calls, the crises I'd solved without asking for credit. I thought about the past 8 days, the silence, the space, the version of myself I'd rediscovered in the absence of demand. And I thought about my daughter, 27 years old, sitting alone in the dark, finally telling the truth. I could go back. I could fix it. I could swoop in and save the wedding and make sure everything went smoothly and let her have her perfect day. I could do all of that. But I wouldn't be doing it for her. I'd be doing it for the version of myself who believed that love meant erasing my own needs. And I wasn't her anymore. Melissa, I said quietly, I love you. I will always love you. But I'm not coming back. What? Her voice broke. Mom, please. You told me I was too much, that my presence would ruin your day. And maybe you were right. Maybe I was doing too much. Maybe I was making it about me without realizing it. I didn't mean, but here's what I need you to understand. I can't be your mother and your infrastructure. I can't be the person you love and the person you hide. And I can't keep holding your life together while you pretend I'm not there. I'm sorry. I know you are. And I forgive you. She went very still. You do? Yes. But forgiveness doesn't mean I go back to the way things were. It means I let go. Let go of what? Of the idea that I have to fix everything for you, of the belief that my worth is measured by how much I can carry, of the fear that if I stop saving you, you won't love me anymore. Melissa was sobbing now, openly, without restraint. I do love you. I do. I know, sweetheart, I know. And then, because I needed her to hear it one last time, but I'm still not coming. I hung up the phone before she could respond, set the phone on the nightstand, and lay back down in the dark. My face was wet. I hadn't realized I'd been crying, but these weren't tears of sadness. They were something else. Relief, maybe. Or release. The wedding was 12 hours away, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what would happen without me. Saturday morning, the wedding day. I woke before sunrise and went for a walk on the beach. The sand was cold beneath my bare feet. The sky was that particular shade of blue that only exists in the hour before dawn, deep and clear and infinite. I walked for miles, and with each step, I felt lighter. Not because I was happy about what had happened with Melissa, but because I'd finally stopped carrying what wasn't mine to hold. When I got back to my room, I made coffee and sat on the balcony with my laptop. It was time to finish what I'd started. First, the group chat, the family thread that had been blowing up for days with questions and accusations and demands. I scrolled through the last 24 hours of messages. Melissa, 3:47 a.m. Mom's not coming. I don't know what else to say. Aunt Claire, this is ridiculous. Someone needs to talk sense into her. Laura, Claire, stop. This isn't about you. Cousin Rachel, is the wedding still happening? Melissa, yes, it's happening. It's just going to be different. I read it all, and then I scrolled to the top of the thread, pressed the button, leave group. Are you sure you want to leave Whitmore family? I was. The chat disappeared from my phone. 37 people, 2 years of messages, every holiday plan, every birthday reminder, every piece of family drama I'd mediated, gone. And I felt nothing but relief. Next, the files. I opened the shared drive where I'd kept all the wedding documents, vendor contracts, payment schedules, seating charts, timeline spreadsheets, contact lists, emergency protocols, hundreds of hours of work, all of it organized, color-coded, cross-referenced. I'd built this system thinking I was helping, but really I'd been building a cage for both of us. I selected everything, paused for just a moment, then pressed delete. Move to trash? Yes. Empty trash permanently? Yes. The folder went blank, clean, white, empty. If Melissa needed those files now, she'd have to ask me for them, and I'd already decided I wouldn't send them, not to punish her, but because it was time for her to build her own systems, her own life, without me holding the scaffolding. Then, the calendar. The shared family calendar I'd maintained for years. Every doctor's appointment, every school event, every anniversary, birthday, graduation. I'd been the keeper of collective time, the one who remembered so no one else had to. I scrolled through months of entries. Some were mine, most were other people's, things they'd ask me to track, to remind them about, to manage. I selected my name from the sharing settings, clicked Remove Access. This will delete all events you created. Continue? I continued. The calendar didn't disappear, but my presence in it did. All the entries I'd made, all the reminders, all the notes, all the careful coordination vanished. What remained was sparse, scattered, incomplete, exactly as it would have been if I'd never been there. I closed the laptop, poured another cup of coffee, and sat very still, feeling the shape of what I'd just done. This wasn't anger. This wasn't revenge. This was amputation. Clean, surgical, necessary. I'd spent 27 years growing around other people's needs, bending my life to accommodate their chaos, pruning my own wants until I'd almost forgotten I had any. And now I was cutting away everything that had grown into me without permission. It hurt, but it also felt like breathing for the first time in years. Around 3 p.m., right when the ceremony would have been starting, I was at the resort spa getting a massage. My phone was in the locker, silent, face down. I had no idea how the wedding was going. I didn't know if the flowers arrived. I didn't know if the caterer showed up. I didn't know if Melissa walked down the aisle in chaos or in calm. And for the first time in 8 months, I wasn't wondering, I wasn't worrying, I wasn't mentally running through contingency plans for problems that might arise. I was just lying on a heated table, lavender oil on my skin, soft music in my ears, and nothing, absolutely nothing, waiting for me to fix. Wholeness, I realized, wasn't about having everything. It was about releasing everything that required you to be less than whole. That evening, I extended my reservation. Another week, maybe 2. I'd figure it out as I went. I sat at the same bar where I'd taken that first sunset photo, the one that had fractured Melissa's carefully constructed narrative. The sky was turning gold and pink, the ocean catching fire. I ordered champagne. The bartender raised an eyebrow. Special occasion? You could say that. He didn't ask what. I didn't explain. I just sipped my champagne and watched the sun melt into the sea. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. I didn't check it. because here's what I'd learned over the past 10 days. I'd spent my whole life being available. Available to fix, available to soothe, available to sacrifice. And people had mistaken my availability for absence of self. They thought because I could carry their weight, I didn't have any of my own. They thought because I showed up for them, I didn't need anyone to show up for me. They thought because I was always there, I always would be. But I wasn't absent anymore. I was unavailable. And unavailable didn't mean cruel. It didn't mean cold. It meant I'd finally learned the difference between love and erasure, between helping and disappearing, between being someone's mother and being someone's appliance. The sun dropped below the horizon. The sky deepened to violet. Stars started to appear, faint and tentative, like they were testing whether it was safe to be seen. I finished my champagne, ordered another, and somewhere 200 miles north, my daughter was married now. Or maybe she wasn't. Maybe the wedding had collapsed entirely. Maybe she'd called it off. Maybe she'd pulled it together at the last second. I didn't know. And I was learning to be okay with that, because her life was hers to live. Her mistakes were hers to make. Her triumphs were hers to claim. And I didn't have to be the foundation for any of it. I could just be her mother, flawed, visible, unavailable when necessary. And somehow that felt like the most loving thing I'd ever done. I stayed at that bar until the stars were thick overhead and the ocean was black and endless. Then I went back to my room, crawled into bed, and slept. Deeply, dreamlessly, without guilt. And when I woke the next morning, the sun was rising over the water, and I had nowhere to be except exactly where I was.
Wow. Just wow. Caitlin, if you're watching this, I need you to know how incredibly brave you are. Not just for living through this, but for having the courage to send me your story and allow me to share it here. That takes strength most people don't have. What you did wasn't cruel. It wasn't selfish. It was self-preservation. And I think a lot of people watching this need to hear that. Because here's the thing. So many of us, especially women, are conditioned to believe that love means sacrifice, that being a good mother, a good daughter, a good partner means making ourselves smaller so others can be bigger. We're taught to be available, accommodating, endlessly giving. And when we finally set a boundary, when we finally say no, or I can't, or I won't, we're called selfish, dramatic, too much. But Caitlin wasn't too much. She was just visible, and her daughter couldn't handle that. Now, I want to be clear. I don't think Melissa is a villain. I think she's a young woman who grew up in the shadow of someone extraordinary and didn't know how to step into her own light without dimming her mother's. That's a real struggle. That's a real pain. But it's also not Caitlin's responsibility to fix. And that's the lesson here. You are not responsible for managing other people's insecurities. You are not required to make yourself smaller so someone else can feel bigger. And you are absolutely allowed to walk away when someone treats you like infrastructure instead of a person. To everyone watching this, if you've ever been told you're too much, I want you to hear this. You're not too much. You're just too much for people who want to keep you in a box, and those aren't your people. Your people will celebrate your light, not ask you to dim it. Your people will see your presence as a gift, not a threat. Your people will never make you choose between being loved and being seen. And if you're currently playing the role Caitlin played, if you're the one holding everything together, managing everyone's emotions, fixing every crisis, I want you to ask yourself, what would happen if I stopped? Not out of spite, not to prove a point, but just to see. Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let people experience the consequences of taking you for granted. Caitlin, I hope you're still at that resort. I hope you're drinking champagne and watching sunsets and learning what it feels like to be unavailable. You've earned it.
And to everyone else, thank you so much for tuning in today.
I'll be back tomorrow, same time, with another story that I promise will keep you on the edge of your seat. In the meantime, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation like Caitlin's? Have you ever had to choose between being seen and being loved? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me where you're watching from. Share your story if you feel comfortable. And please, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your loved ones. Your support is what keeps me going and allows me to bring you these stories every single day. Until tomorrow, stay strong, stay true to yourself, and remember, you are never too much for the right people. I'm Pearl, and I'll see you in the next one.